yes, we don't know our goals in the next 5 years, but we want to be able that whatever goal that is, there's a place to call home, and we can go there and
at our leisure.
unpack.
Yeah.
You know, our kids can
on our
go.
terms.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's important.
Hey guys, welcome back to One More Day. I'm your host, SJ.
And I'm Diva Mile. Hey guys.
And we are so excited to see you guys yet again. We
Yeah.
have the channel growing over 400 subscribers now.
Yay! Thank
and
you
that
guys.
is all because of you. And we thank you so much for joining us for our Kirk Franklin review of his Father's Day documentary. But now, if you're here for the first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hit that notification bell. Please subscribe and make sure to check our wall and check all of the comments and really converse with us. We really want to get to grow this channel and get to know you more. So
yes, and it's good that we are growing because of you guys. And so today we have a new topic on One More Day. And usually we cover different topics on marriage if you are new here. And so today the topic we're going to cover is the F word.
What's the F word?
This word, basically, we love it, we need it, but sometimes we can hesitate to talk about it before or during marriage. And that is finances.
Yes.
Yeah?
Finances are definitely something that, you know, we sometimes try to avoid if we feel like we don't have a handle on it, but it's an unavoidable topic that is an essential part of the growth of any relationship that is in a committed state where you are merging lives. That's going to be something that allows you to really sustain who you are in that process. So it's something that you have to discuss.
Absolutely. And guys, we were not going to avoid this topic. We hear you. A couple of you did bring up a few topics we can cover, and we were excited to cover finances today. We've learned so much so far in marriage and what that means, what finances mean to us. But before marriage, how was finances for you?
Yeah, before marriage, I believe that the way that I viewed finances was, you know, being an independent person, I looked at it more in the lines of it was something to be, let's say, feared than to really work for me. There was always a thought that maybe I would run out of it, so I have to kind of use it fast in order to sustain the things that I would like to, you know, attain. However, they weren't things that were true assets. They were things that were of temporary, you know, pleasure. And whether that be clothes or just eating out or whatever it is, the way I was looking at money was just simply, oh, it's a means to get the thing I want, not a means to really allow my life to be motored by it, like a motor running, like constantly facilitating a space for me to do something. I wasn't looking at it like that before.
I totally agree. I can relate with that. For me, I would say finances was also just, I have it, but I didn't really understand it. You know, I'm grateful that I was able to have finances to have my own apartment. Didn't own it, it was rent, but you know, just live on my own for a season, so I understand how that's like. I'm glad that through finances I was able to travel the world and just get to know other cultures and just be able to spend it anyhow, anyway. But the understanding of finances was if I am just dropping it anywhere and not even understanding what is it doing once I drop it on the ground, whether it's with soil or with dry land, or it's just, I feel I didn't see the fruits constantly grow. It was sometimes not, only because I just didn't understand what that meant to have finances in my life as a single person or just a human being.
But what did you think it was going to be when you got married?
I have to be honest, that is something that I didn't fully even think about it. I thought, okay, I have my finances, my husband has my finances. Once we're married, it's all our finances, you know? And I didn't necessarily think, okay, when I get married, my husband's going to be the financial provider.
You didn't think that?
I didn't, because first of all, from what I've known, the little that I know, from what I've observed from my parents, it always seemed just a partnership. It wasn't, that's yours, that's mine. So
your example is what didn't give you the idea that it was just all going to be on him once you got married.
Yes, yeah, and definitely the partnership is essential. So coming into marriage, though, what I'm learning with our baby crying in the background is still have a conversation, communicate how that looks like, and not just have preconception.
Yeah, so for me, in terms of my upbringing, I definitely looked at finances from a little bit of a work perspective, because I was trying to navigate something I didn't really speak to my parents directly about. So when I say warped, it's not because they intentionally warped my mind, because I don't think they did. I think I was just kind of like seeing things as an adult conversation that maybe I wasn't privy to until I got there. I remember distinctly, a bit personal, the story that my parents had all these credit cards on the top of their refrigerator, and they cut those things up because I associated that with something that really didn't benefit them in their lives. So how I took that action is credit cards are evil and they're bad. So when college came around and I constantly got, the mailers that said, "Oh, Mr. Jackson, would you like to sign up for this, that?" I immediately said, no, because I saw that day that they cut up those credit cards.
Now, so it instilled fear, or?
Well, it instilled not only fear, just like, well, that's the thing that's going to trap you. It's not going to work for your favor. But just like anything, when you do your own research, these things, unless they're truly illegal, it's benefiting somebody, but it's just about how you operate with them. And I'm sure that even my parents can probably vouch to say that they're more educated on that whole ordeal with how the credit card works for your adult assets in life now. But at the time, I believe that maybe they were trying to figure out how it wasn't benefiting them, and they had to cut them up. There would have to be a reason for that. So when I finally got into it, I was just like, oh, it's all about making sure that you have enough to give back what the bank is giving you.
Yeah.
But if you're, first of all, learning now, all I've learned about credit cards and things like that, just financially, you won't even be approved for certain things if you don't have the capital, right? But if you do have enough, even for a little bit, you have to be a good steward over that. You have to make sure that you are making the payments. And it's just like a landlord doesn't want somebody who can only make $12,000 a year. They want the person who has 40 times the rent. They want a person who makes $100,000 a year to get that rent, that even if the rent is only $3,000, you're really making.
And that is knowledge. You know, I would say in terms of finances, I didn't ask enough questions about finances. I mean, I studied business and financial management was something I struggled in understanding, only because I wasn't seeing how to apply it. I didn't see how it was working for my life. It was more like just going through the process. And so even working at a school for so many years, going to the human resource and understanding what are my finances doing, how can I grow them. I've rented almost all my life. That rent could have been more than one home.
So many, absolutely.
And so the knowledge that I have now, or that I chose to tap into, because I'm sure I could have had knowledge way big before, is great. It's better than never.
It's better late than never.
Late than never, yes.
And and we'll talk about some of the resources that have helped us much later on. But I think today will be helpful if we dive into this article that I found on marriage.com, and I believe it's a faith-based site for married couples, but the principles apply to just anyone, and it's 8 questions for better management of marriage finances, which is very specific because we're not talking about boyfriend, girlfriend, we're talking about you really merging your life together. I'll probably ask Eva Mile, she'll ask me what my perspective on some of these questions are. And we won't go into every description of them, but we will just tap into it to maybe help other people who haven't considered some of these questions.
Let's do it.
So the first question is, do we work as a team? And what it says here in a little bit of a description, it says, do you still have a mentality of mine and yours, or do you think in terms of ours? Competitiveness can be a real obstacle to working as a team. If you feel that somehow you have to compete and constantly prove yourself to your mate, it will prevent you from seeing what is best for the both of you together. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
I think we do work together as a team. Mm-hmm. Is it always easy? No. Mm-hmm. But if we're intentional about that teamwork, mm-hmm. we'll really see a breakthrough. Mm-hmm. And, that's financially. Yeah. And that's why it says through thick and thin, right? Mm-hmm. And finances is part of that journey.
Yeah.
And so
for richer or for poorer.
For richer or poorer, yeah. right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say we do work as a team. Mm-hmm. And while we're working as a team, we're growing. Mm-hmm. We're learning, we're growing, and we try to apply what we've learned instead of just putting it under the carpet. Avoidance tactics, and that's important when it comes to finances. How are we working as a team? Is it just me who knows where to pay the bills, mm-hmm. what mm-hmm. bills to pay? And so on, or do we both understand that?
And, honestly, I'm in a unique situation because I'm in a country that I don't speak the language. And so I've had to rely on Diva Mile in a lot of ways to even communicate to some of the things that I usually would take the reins on because I'm a responsible person. I wouldn't just let things slide if I need to pay a bill. But because she understands my work ethic and understands that, okay, well, I may not be able to communicate them directly. I can go to the bank and make a deposit real quick and still have to call you. Mm-hmm. We're still working together in tandem, not just leaving her there. But it's a challenge when you live in a foreign country. Yeah. It is a challenge. It certainly is. Did you want to ask the second question?
Okay, let's go. So second question, the D word. Mm-hmm. What debt do you have? What debt do we have? Mm-hmm. And so here it says a little bit about that. I want to read maybe the first paragraph.
Oh, the first?
Okay. The big D word can extremely difficult to cope with you. Can extremely be difficult to cope with, especially if you are newly married. Mm-hmm. We're newly married 2 years in. Mm-hmm. So how should married couples handle finances when they outstanding debt? Okay. When they have outstanding debt, how do they deal with that? Have we even talked about that while we were dating?
I don't remember.
Yes, but we did? No, but I would say we had a conversation about our life financially, and if any of us are in debt. And you mentioned tuition. Student loans. Mm-hmm. And the reason we even came to that conversation is because I was sharing about my education and how, I had scholarships for university. And
Lucky
when I did
not even scholarship, a full ride, a full free.
Yes, and of course, that's because also I'll give credit to my parents. They had planned that part of my financial life. How can I apply for scholarships in different sectors? And it helped, but at the same time, that's just how my education was aligned.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that you having to student loan is debt in that area is a failure, So how do we deal with it now that we're both married? Do we just avoid it? No, we come up with a plan, just like our parents come up with plans to how they came up with a plan when they got married. Now, as family, as married couple, we come up with a plan. Yes.
Well, I think that yes, you didn't have student loans, and I do. And I think what happens in certain marriages, potentially, this is just me projecting what I'm seeing lately, is that some people feel like that's your problem. And maybe they don't understand that once you make that covenant with someone and you do join, it becomes both of your debt. So if I had $100,000 in debt, which I don't, but if I did, it's now your $100,000 that we're both trying to knock down. And, I'm sure some people view it differently, but the only way, if we're going to work as a team, everything that we're earning, things that are going to go towards us being debt free as a unit, as a one in the covenant of marriage, we have to knock down that. Because I can't just carry the burden anymore of just I carry the burden, but I know that say for instance we both got into something, you're not going to start sifting to say, well honey, that's just your portion. We're splitting this in the middle, and you don't really have anything to show for it. No, we'll still benefit from an abundance of finances.
Absolutely,
as we endeavor businesses and investments, all these different things. But it becomes an issue of, if you are not married and you don't want these issues with debt at all, you got to find somebody who has no debt.
Yeah.
You just do. And that might be a preference. That might be like a deal breaker for people. Thankfully, it wasn't for us, because I wasn't all consumed with it because of deferment. But in the general sense of it, it is important to know what the other person is dealing with, because it's going to be your problem.
Yes. Yeah. And, we call it a problem, but in the process, it's okay to seek counseling, to seek advice, because just because one has debt and the other one doesn't, that means the other person will help me, because they don't know. You both need the knowledge of how to, like you said, have a solution with that. And seeking counseling, seeking a financial advisor helps. Yeah.
And let's be real, some people can't even afford that. Thankfully, for the resources online, you can do the free research. But when you are able to have the means to find a financial advisor, or even a person who can do a pro bono kind of analytics on your finances, I think definitely seek that counsel first. You know?
Do you want to do question 3?
Yes, of course. This is already something we did, but number 3 says, do we plan to have children? And I'll probably read the last of the paragraph. It says, besides all the blessings of starting a family, of course, there are extra expenses that can place a strain on money management for couples. Tell me about it. As children grow over the years, so do the expenses tend to grow, especially with regard to education costs. These expenses need to be discussed and taken into account as you plan your family together.
Yeah.
We personally could have planned even further, but I think that I'll say for me, I definitely wanted to have kids within the first year of marriage. I'm in my late 30s. That's something that I had to really be realistic about. And I didn't want to start the family 5 years into the marriage. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So as far as that's concerned, the urgency was there for me. And had I known that 2 things, that people were so generous with baby things, I would have been like, oh, okay, that's piece of cake. But had I known that diapers were as disposable as they are, had I known that there's a lot of medical bills, thankfully we're in a country where there is a lot of insurance covered by medical expenses, but we probably won't be here forever. So those things will change and evolve, and you have to have some sort of semblance of a plan.
Yeah.
Many people don't always plan their pregnancies, and rightfully so. You're in a marriage and you're doing what married people do, but you definitely should consider, especially if you don't have just disposable income, what does this mean for our financial situation? Because you're bringing another person into the mix, and they have to eat, and that means that there's a little bit more in that recipe than just 1, 2,
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I think also it's a personality thing. Here it says plan, and when you think about planning, sometimes you may think, oh, have you thought about having kids? But planning is actually having a clear vision of how that's going to look like. And yeah, for me as well, having children was something I wanted to have with you right away after marriage, right? Why wait? And in the process, I would say you need to understand what that comes with. And since we're talking about finances, one thing I would say before even marrying you, I did invest on an insurance for future children. Why? Because I was like, okay, I can invest on myself for the future. And so I just did that. Do I have a clear plan? No, I did it because I was able to put finances in that.
And you have the faith that you're going to have a family anyway.
Right, So that's something that was, for me, a breakthrough on really taking the plan and knowledge of planning for your children. And now that we're married, it's both of us doing that. And I would say now, in terms of medical bills or what the baby needs, sometimes we can over exhaust that area when it's actually simple, and sometimes have to think about how my parents did it with 6 children.
Wow. Yeah.
And that when you are in a space of, oh, you got to pile up everything for the baby, and when you just need to just focus on their daily needs. Or
if I can just interject real quick, we were just talking to another couple who are not married yet, and we were just telling them how we felt about baby showers and all the different things that babies have. And I don't know, before Instagram, there's a lot of stuff that wasn't invented, right? So people were able to fend for their children and their babies and give them what they needed, and it wasn't always on display. And we were in this beautiful store in downtown Taiwan, and it was just very elegant, high-end baby stuff. Stuff that
it was Christmas for him.
Yeah, stuff that I dreamed to kind of have in that just the luxury lifestyle. A lot of people like a luxury lifestyle. Some people like more simple. For me, there's an attraction to the way that things are made. And however, I thought about it, and I'm like, who is this for, though? Because as we can tell, the baby doesn't care if the has on a pink shirt, a multicolored hat, and mismatched socks. The baby wants to eat and sleep and have affection. As long as they're
happy, yeah.
Right. So all this stuff, the state-of-the-art cart, the state-of-the-art stroller or changing table, that's really not for the baby when it comes down to it, especially if you're the type of person who's like, look at my new this. So as you're saying, it is simple if you are able to humble yourself and saying it can be simple. It doesn't have to be this thing that puts you in debt, almost like a wedding that everyone else is supposed to see. Maybe you just go to the courthouse, like you have to really think about your kids as the people that you're bringing up and girding up in a way, as opposed to just on display, like this latest everything. That might put you in a place where now you're not even financially able to have more than one, because you didn't put everything into that.
That's it.
That
right?
first one to try to impress others, in a different setting. But if you have it, you have it.
Yeah, and that's fine. Let me read question 4.
Okay.
It says, what are our financial goals? What are your financial goals in marriage? Let me read the first paragraph. It says, one of the benefits of sharing finances in marriage is that you can set your financial goals together. Are you planning to live in the same house or apartment for the rest of your lives, or would you like to build or buy your own place? This has been a conversation this couple of months we've been having.
I'll say for me, the reason why it's been a conversation is because I didn't personally grow up in a home that my parents owned. And I know that that's something that they would desire. Most families would. But because I didn't grow up in a home that my parents owned, I definitely long for that sense of ownership where you can do whatever you want with that place that you have bought. And it's like, you can customize it, you can do it. I'm an artist, a designer, all these things. And so also you can facilitate it as a place where other people can benefit from your home. It becomes a true asset. And that's where financial literacy really comes in, where you understand, like, it's not, once again, to flaunt or floss. It's like, this home has equity. This home has longevity that can be passed down as a huge heirloom, as a huge help to the generations after you, to your own kids. You can downsize and give your child the home. So it's something that I believe will happen soon.
Yes, and we're having this conversation because, as I mentioned earlier, you have these finances, but where are they being stewarded? Where are you dropping the finances on? Just dry land, or does it have soil to multiply, to increase? And in terms of a home, I would say I took that for granted a little bit, because once upon a time, yes, my parents thought, oh, let's have a home. We have a family, I think at that time, a family of 3 or 4, but they took the opportunity to invest on property that now it's a great place to continue to raise a family. So growing up in, honestly, whether a home is bought or rented for me is it a home for your children? Do you have memories, or are you just going by life, and not having a plan? So for me, I would say growing up in a home where I knew no matter what, that is a place where my grandkids, my own children will go back to visit. It makes sense now why that was an early investment. And yet we know couples who move every year, who've moved 7 times, and their children have had great memories in different homes that were probably rented. That's not the point.
Well, a home is what you make it, is what you're saying.
Yes.
But I do think that it is important for me personally to own it.
That's where I was getting at. The reason is, we were talking about it right now. Yes, we don't know our goals in the next 5 years, but we want to be able that whatever goal that is, there's a place to call home, and we can go there and
at our leisure.
Unpack. Our kids can
on our
go.
terms.
Yes, and that's important. And I think we've learned the importance of that.
Oh yeah, already moving 3 times here. It's kind of like. We want to leave on our terms. We want to be able to rent it out on our terms. We want to be able to do whatever we want on the walls on our terms. And it's in general in life, it's good to own things.
It's a goal. It's a great goal to have. Don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it even in the beginning of your marriage, even in the process of being a fiance to somebody. I wouldn't say prolong the engagement, but be realistic about, if you have the ability to buy, you and your partner should buy.
Yes.
Take it from me, only 2 years in, you and your partner should look, instead of trying to look for a rent or this beautiful lavish loft apartment, those things are fine. Look for something you can own.
Yes.
Look for something you can fix up. Look for something that can appreciate and value and and work for you as it appreciates and value as you fix it up. That would be my advice there.
Yeah, me too.
So question number 5, it says, how will we set up our budget?
Yes.
And so what it says here, the last paragraph says, it will no doubt be a learning curve for both of you and give you a set of boundaries that helps to give you peace of mind, knowing you will make it financially if you stay within the budget you have agreed on together.
Yes. They mentioned budget more than once.
Yeah. I mean, when I got my first credit card, I had to be self-disciplined to know that, okay, if I have, $9,000 coming in a month or something, and my credit card is $1,500, that $9,000 can be just completely soaked up in New York in like 5 minutes. But what you really need to understand is that the thing that you really want and the thing that you really need, these distinctions are important as you become an adult. And so when you want something, the patience that it's going to take for you and the discipline to get it when it might not be as conveniently making you happy in that moment, it's going to be something you have to consider. It's going to have to be a delayed gratification. And I think
it doesn't mean it's denied, but
no,
it's
and it's not forever. It's just delayed gratification. When you impulsively shop for anything or impulsively press send on that cart in your Amazon cart, you will regret the fact that by the time that credit card payment comes up, you don't have the money when you made triple times what the actual receipt of it was. The payment plan was. You can only look at yourself as like, wow, I really wasn't a good steward of what I already had, and now I have to make up for it. And so I would definitely share with other people, just from my personal experience, like, just stay on it and
be diligent as well. Like,
just
stay
because
on
it seems like it's there. People who really make a lot of money, they make these big decisions because it's not going to hurt their bottom line. And unfortunately, I see a lot of people who don't have a lot of money, they hurt their bottom line and then they're trying to just make up for it. And it's like, all you have to do is be patient. The lifestyle that you want is absolutely attainable for anyone, but you have to work and build it. And you can't build it on sinking sand, and your sinking sand is the fact that all of your money is slipping through your hands because you want instant gratification.
You want instant gratification. It takes away discipline, the understanding of discipline with finances. Also, then, how are you able to teach someone else if you're not able to be teachable and have the knowledge?
To push back on that, some people don't want to be teaching somebody else, right? Because if your mindset is instant gratification all the time, it's instantly pleasing you, right? So, and that's why in a marriage and finances, you cannot have that same mindset, because you'll be quickly like, honey, I bought a car. Well, where was the discussion with me? It's my money. No. We're buying the car, because even though, let's say one person's even driving, it becomes both of our asset. Everything is together. So you can't walk in there. You have to be wanting to be teachable yourself, and then be willing to share something with some other people, which is a whole nother conversation about what is your purpose of your marriage. What is it, just to be in love, or do you find that God is supposed to show something forth with this example of the two people that he put together, and hopefully you do feel like your marriage is a tool to help others understand how love is supposed to be seen. But
absolutely. What expenses can we expect from extended family? Okay, let me read this paragraph. It says, do you have aging parents who need help? Or perhaps your parents may even need to move in with you at some stage. Or perhaps one of your spouse's siblings is going through a tough time, getting divorced, out of work, or facing an addiction. Those are all vital points. Families go through that. And we now are a family, and we've talked about how does our family even contribute financially to our extended family. Before we were married, sending money to my parents, whether it's for a birthday or just treating them, was something that was regular, and I enjoyed it. It was something I look forward to do. And sometimes even when traveling back home, I noticed my attitude towards money, like I said earlier, without the understanding, I was very generous, which being generous is great. It's a great thing. And it would be like Oprah sometimes. So it's like, 100 for you, 100 for you, 100 for you. And if I understood the value of finances and when and when not to use, I wouldn't have that kind of attitude, right? And so when it comes to...
Meaning you wouldn't be as giving?
I would understand the purpose of giving at that time.
So you didn't?
I didn't fully understand.
Okay.
And if I would have to look deeper why the giving was sometimes so drastic, is that the word to use, where maybe I didn't think about, okay, maybe this area, create boundaries, just like earlier we talked about boundaries, because as much as you love your family and friends, when I went out, I would be the one with friends saying, oh, let me treat you. Sometimes some friends
overextending yourself.
And so like I said, the attitude you had towards money was not understanding what it meant to steward it well.
But were you budgeting when you went and paid for friends? Were you actually mentally having a budget of, okay, I can afford this, so here I am.
The budget wasn't tangible. It was more like, I have it, so even if maybe here I'm treating you, I still have enough. But there wasn't a clear vision of what does the enough mean. Is it a portion to this and a portion to that? Part of it was just like, it's saved up, I have it, let me treat you because I can. So that can be fine, but if it's becoming a part of your routine and not being sensitive to where it can go. So going back to question 6 about extended family expenses and what to expect with that. We've had friends share stories like, oh, as soon as I made it, or as soon as I got a really great job, we have my family members, extended families, even cousins, always expect me to give money because, and when they give, those people feel like, oh, I may be accepted, or there's value in me in that part of my life.
I would say, did you want to say
yeah. So
I would say to add to that, I mean, I was at the barbershop and I heard 2 men. One guy was Haitian, one was from Gambia. And what they were sharing is culturally, there's an expectation to give money back to their families. at any given time. If you have it, you give it. And I told them, I said, it's not exactly the same expectation in the States. People are very every man for himself, unless you have that family that was built on those principles of we are a pool of people who happen to be related and we're coming together to really have the greater good of each other be benefited. And so I don't really recall a time personally where I went to my cousins for money. I probably would feel very awkward about it because maybe I'd feel like, oh, would they talk about me? Like, then it would be a whole nother conversation with their parents and it wouldn't be a back and forth. Now, if I was always around my cousins, sure. A lot of my cousins are like siblings to me because we grew up together. But when it comes to the overall, being an artist myself, I have had the desire to give back to my family, even my brother, when it comes to just like, anytime I have a big thing, I always imagine giving them a huge portion of it because of what I believe they've done for me in my pursuits of careers in entertainment that seem very unstable at times. So when you're doing that, you don't have the luxury of what you have where you're like working a job for 10 years and there's a salary and you just know, okay, it might be a lot of what I'm giving, but God is going to return it because I have the favor of going into that job. It's definitely different for artists who are full-time artists and quote unquote gypsies. But it definitely teaches you what are your intentions when you do have the means. And I have the same heart as you when it comes to like, I mean, what am I going to do with $12 billion, right? And even $1 million, right? Yes, you can do a lot with $1 million, but when it comes to family and extended family, if it is warranted, if there is a relationship, and if there is a need that makes sense, I say go before the Lord about it.
Yeah.
Really seek your heart about it, and don't just make it something that is a flippant decision. It has to be something that is, once again, budgeted, considered, and yes, they're family, but if they have the will to walk, talk, and breathe and move, they can also get a job. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So question number 7 here says...
How many more do we have? Okay.
It's only 8 questions.
Okay, yes.
So question number 7 is, do we have an emergency or retirement fund? And what I'll read here is the last 2 paragraphs. You may like to discuss setting up an emergency fund for those unexpected expenses which crop up from time to time, like vehicle repairs or when your washing machine dies. Then, of course, there's retirement. Besides the pension fund you may be getting from your work, you might like to set aside a little extra for those dreams you have been keeping for your retirement days.
Yes. Huge sigh on that. In the beginning of our marriage, we had counselors that kind of guided us to have that plan. And we had an Excel file. We knew we looked at where our finances were going. We had different categories, sort of like, what is his name? Ramsey?
Oh, we wouldn't talk about him, but yeah.
Yeah, how he teaches people.
Yeah.
And one thing I would say with that is you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent to see the fruits of a retirement fund or emergency. For me, I would say it was a little bit easier when I was probably not married, single, because you're always thinking about yourself, your own emergency fund, your own retirement fund.
Right.
But in marriage, if you're not communicating even that, you will end up in Chinese, it's like you're walking around with your head cut off, and so that's something that we've been intentional to do and to plan and then be consistent, especially since our careers is we're building our own business. We are we don't work for the government that already has retirement set aside for you. So yeah, that's definitely essential for us in our marriage.
For me personally, as I've already stated, I'm an entertainer, and that's what I like to do for the most part. Entertainer, designer, artist. The idea of a retirement fund or a pension plan has always been daunting to me, not because the purpose of it isn't a good intention, but it's just the idea of the mundanity of the day in and day out never really spoke to me as far as a retirement plan in that regard. So I have definitely tried to reconfigure my thought process as that has come to mind for just like overall how I see life and how I see building of wealth in a diversified way.
Right.
And just the idea of doing the same thing and relying on either the government or your job to do that for you. I think, some people get trapped in that and then they don't explore.
Yes.
And definitely don't explore together, because you have your thing and I have my thing and we're in these jobs for X amount of years. And so I think it's definitely individual and choice wise. So
I hear you, babe.
It's one of those things. Yes, so number 8 is, are we going to tithe?
Are we going to tithe? What is tithing?
Well, it says here, tithing is one of those good habits which help to keep us from becoming totally self-centered and selfish. Giving at least 10% of your income to your church or charity of your choice gives you a certain sense of satisfaction which comes from knowing that you have in some way given a lift to someone else's burden. Yeah. And then it says here, perhaps you feel you can't afford a tithe, but you still can afford to give in a kind way, whether it's your time, generosity, hospitality, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since this was put in finances, that means tithing is gaining finances. You should also have the knowledge or the ability to give and tithe. It's teaching people to be generous in marriage. Or
you mean the tithe itself is teaching people to be generous? What do you mean?
I mean, why would they put tithing in finances?
Well, because I believe this particular publication is a Christian publication.
Okay.
So it's not it's not a general. No, it's based on a biblical worldview, which you and I uphold, and we understand that even in times where we're like, wow, that's a lot of tithe, we try to make it a point that we are operating in that way, because I believe that when we have had the past of not tithing, we've seen the different results of doing that, whether it's unknowingly or knowingly trying to kind of skimp the tithe. We still have to give back in some way.
Yeah, it's God's instructions, and it's good to honor those instructions, and you get to see the fruits of that. Yeah, not just financially, but as a household.
Have you seen the fruits of that in your personal life, tithing being a benefit to you?
Absolutely. And obviously that attitude of the heart is important.
Yeah.
So even being blessed financially is, where is the attitude with your finances?
Yeah.
So tithing is one of the best way to teach a person or a family or a marriage or a couple of how to look at your finances with giving.
It's also, I believe, tithing is about a principle set of standards. A lot of that comes down to, what are you willing to sacrifice in all that you gain,
Yeah.
If you can't tithe in monetarily in your money, can you tithe hospitality wise?
Yeah.
And all that stuff. It's one of those things where you just need to make sure that someone is benefiting also from the fruits of your labor. I think that just thinking it's about you is really short-sighted.
Absolutely.
And there's always somebody else who needs help.
Yes, and that's the whole point. And to be able to continue to help other people in your family, we have been reading a few books that really gave us a clarity and understanding finances.
Yes, I would agree. The first thing before I talk about the books would be, we would recommend everyone check out the Ramsey Solution. I think that's what it's called, right? And even before I got married, it was something that I was looking up, and David Ramsey is really great on getting your budget together so you understand how to be more financially literate with your situation. You don't have to start with $1 million, but I believe he tells you to start with even $1,000 to save as a savings, and then really expound upon that, and then it becomes bigger and bigger. And eventually you start to see that the stuff that you might have think was chump change becomes a lot more to you.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of when I first saw a show about couponing, and I'm like, oh, these people are saving every little piece of coupon, or they're saving the receipt, and there's something to that. There's something to paying attention to the things that they're
It's
offering
big
you.
here.
And I think a lot of people are keeping money on the table when they don't realize the stuff is right
Oh,
there.
yeah, always. Yeah.
And another two books we would recommend. The first one is, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to say which this one is?
Yeah, so this one is the $100 Startup. All you need is $100.
We're not sponsored, by the way, but these are books that we use.
$100 is about 5,000 NT, and you can spend that much money on coffee for a month. So if you can really put aside that $100, is a great step to building your wealth.
And once again, if you're an entrepreneur, it's really for you.
Yes, and we want small. That's what we're doing.
Yes. And this one, still currently reading, it is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And it is it was on a lot of suggested bestseller lists that I was looking at, just becoming more financially literate as a man in general. But I know that as a couple, we can learn about, once again, mindset being something that is the most essential thing to gaining wealth. And because wealth isn't just about money, right? There's wealth of just knowledge. There's just wealth in your marriage. And so we know that money makes the world go round, but we're hoping that this episode can express to everyone out there that it's a process, and you don't just get into marriage thinking that only one element is going to sustain you. There's so many facets of it.
Be consistent.
And finances.
Communicate.
And communicate.
Plan.
Yes. All of that is important to stay on track there, and you have to be on the same page. We could talk about this particular topic in several parts, but this is just kind of a soft version of it. Hopefully we can bring in more experts soon.
Oh, that would be great.
Who are able to, because we know financial advisors, we know different people who are in financial fields who can really delve into what we've talked about. And we'll probably put more links in the description box of where you can find these books. But we appreciate your time.
Yes.
And we hope to, man, you guys don't know how much it took us to get this particular episode out there to you.
The devil's a liar.
Yeah, it's all good. So any closing remarks?
No, I think you've covered pretty much everything. And let's just continue to be transparent with finances and plan and budget. And you'll make it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, guys.